Some video of you training this offseason was posted, including you with Defensive Player of the Year Myles Garrett. How did that workout come about? Who called who?
So actually, we have the same agent, Nicole, and she paired us up. So this is my second year working out with him, and it's been great. I've learned so much from Myles, just his work ethic, how he takes care of his body, what he eats, what he's doing on his off time to make sure that he's ready for the season. And he's been like a big brother to me, and it's been great.
This is the video. What's happening here?
So right now we're just going over different pass rush moves, working on stepping on toes, working on fast hands, getting offensive linemen out of us, and just working hand work.
How would you describe? I read that you said it just was awesome, an awesome experience. Just how would you describe working out with Myles Garrett?
It's like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but I get to do it every offseason, so it's fun. And I learned so much from him. He's a really great guy, man, a really great human being, and I can't say enough good words about him.
Sure, you've had a chance over these last few years to call playoff games, a bunch of them, including 2 last year. And by the end of that last one in the snow in Foxborough, he looked shaken. He looked to have lost confidence. I don't know that to be the case, but that's what it appeared to be. What does growth look like to you for 7 this year?
Well, obviously, Scott, we know that he can do the job. I mean, he has proven that. He's had his moments. He's still trying to live up to the expectations that he established for himself his rookie year. I can't imagine, quite honestly, what this offseason has been like for him, knowing that they had the defense they had. In the building, they felt that was a Super Bowl contending team, and they certainly were. And then CJ, he struggled in the wild card game. And then, of course, as you mentioned, he had a really tough game against New England. So having to live with that for the last 6 months has been a real challenge. I think the key for him this year, it's not about physical. He's in the second year of his offense. That will help him. But I would imagine that he has put a lot of pressure on himself. And how does he manage that day to day, week to week? Because for any quarterback in the NFL, the emotions ebb and flow, and he can't let the pressure that he might be feeling because of the way last season ended affect how he leads this football team, and that's going to be hard. And in visiting with him, he did talk about that he did work on kind of the mental aspect, and I think he comes into this season maybe a little better mentally as far as how he's going to deal with the emotional roller coaster that an NFL season provides.
The Chargers have injuries of their own, particularly up front, and that was a big issue for them last year across the offensive line.
It'll be really interesting to hear what Jason has to say about this, because they went out and signed Tyler Biadasz, their free agent center, to a 3-year, $30 million contract. He was supposed to be anchoring the center spot, and he goes out this week in a joint practice with the 49ers. One of the 49ers defensive linemen falls on his left knee. There's damage to his ACL. There's other damage in the knee. He's getting further medical opinions, but he's going to be out indefinitely with this injury. There's hope that maybe he can come back later this season. We'll see if he can. And in the interim, the Chargers will have to make do without this center that they loved, that they paid $30 million to, who was going to anchor the front and center part of their offensive line. And Rashawn Slater also hasn't practiced. Now, he is expected to get back to practice this week. He missed last year with the patella tendon injury. That's been an issue in the early part of camp, left early on. But he is going to get back to practice this week, at least for them.
And there is Jason Kelsey, who is now with us from Houston. So we look forward to seeing Pat week 1 in KC. Jason, it's great to see you in Houston. And we just talked about the Raiders and the quarterback, and it's a matter of time, right? We know that the number 1 draft pick will eventually be the starter, but he's got Kirk Cousins there to learn from. Regardless of when Mendoza becomes a starter, how does he benefit from the presence of Cousins long term?
Yeah, I like the way that they're doing this, right? They go out and get a veteran quarterback known for being prepared and on top of it mentally, and he's going to be able to teach this young guy, Mendoza, how to prepare, right? So much of what a rookie learns isn't just from the coaches, it's what you learn from the veterans in place. We had, when we drafted Carson Wentz, we brought in Chase Daniel, and part of the reason they did that, I firmly believe, is because he was with Drew Brees. And I remember Chase Daniels and Carson Wentz preparing like they were Drew Brees with the like when they're coming into the building, what they're doing, studying first throughout the week, what they're doing on Wednesday, what they're doing on Thursday, how they're going about it. And Mendoza's going to be able to learn from a guy who's been in multiple different systems, been around a lot of success in this league, seen how it's done right, seen how it's done wrong. It's a really awesome pairing for a young kid, number 1 overall, to learn from.
Dan, what are your expectations for Justin Herbert in this new offense?
One of the best offenses in the NFL, one of the most complete offenses in the NFL, and I absolutely expect Justin Herbert to be in MVP conversations deep into this season. Healthy, this is a very good offensive line. and a great scheme in Mike McDaniel. Marion Hampton, their young running back, should be a stud, and they are plenty talented on the perimeter. I think the biggest challenge is, can Justin Herbert just add a little bit of anticipation to his game, a little bit of some touch on some throws, because that's such a premier part for this offense. But the way that Mike McDaniels marries run, pass, creates easy throws for quarterbacks, and not only completions, but chunk throws, Justin Herbert should thrive. He's had some unbelievable 6 seasons in his NFL career. He should thrive in this offense as long as they stay healthy.
Okay,
Houston Texans won their final 9 games of the regular season last year, and C.J. Stroud looked poised for a playoff run, but it didn't go great. Stroud 5 fumbles against the Steelers in the first round victory. That tied a playoff record, and then he threw 4 interceptions in the first half in Foxborough the next week, and the Houston Texans were eliminated by the New England Patriots. Those 4 interceptions in the first half tied for the most since the merger. So, Dan, what's the biggest concern you have for C.J. Stroud entering the season?
Laura hit on it. Just the mental. Is he able to flush that playoff stretch and obviously performance against New England? This is a Super Bowl caliber football team. I have said all offseason there's no quarterback under more pressure than C.J. Stroud. They get good quarterback play. This is a championship contending team. And the thing is, last season, his play was trending back to looking like that rookie year, and then it just fell apart. Are they able to rebuild them? This is a remade offensive line once again. They lost one of their bright stars and number 2 wide receiver, Jaden Higgins, yesterday to an ACL injury. That's a significant injury. But it really comes down to this. One of the bigger question marks in the league, I would say, is what version of C.J. Stroud do we get, not physically, but mentally?
Look, the pressure, Graz, is already on him because of how he finished last season. But when you're drafted 3rd overall and you're waiting for that contract, but the 2nd overall pick, Will Anderson, you're the 2nd overall pick, but the 3rd overall pick, Will Anderson, gets the most money ever paid by a defensive end in the history of football. And when he gets that contract, it starts to make you wonder, well, what about me? And every time there's an interception, every time there's an incomplete, every time there's voices in the media, it's going to come back to the contract. The fact that the Texans, who we have spoken about all offseason, take care of their own, the fact that they haven't taken care of Stroud yet, is a lingering and looming storyline that is going to hover around this quarterback and this team the entire 2026 NFL season. So I hope he comes out fast. I hope they come out and succeed early, because these type of things start to take on a life of their own if they don't. Everything I've heard from that organization is it's been great and it's been as good as you could possibly imagine. That said, they were saying the same thing last offseason, and it didn't go that way in Nick Caley's first year as offensive coordinator.
Peter, you bring up the contract, and the Houston Texans have had discussions with C.J. Stroud about a new deal. My understanding is they're not close at this particular time. Talks will continue. We'll see if they're able to get anything done by the time the season begins or shortly thereafter. What's interesting here is after this season, there are going to be a group of quarterbacks in line for extensions, a la Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Bo Nix, where you're going to see some enormous prices paid for quarterbacks. The prices of quarterbacks, as we know for all players, is always going up, especially a quarterback. So if the Texans and C.J. Stroud can't get a deal done in the coming weeks, and C.J. Stroud lights it up, the price is going way up. If he doesn't light it up, then obviously the Texans are in a situation where they may have to find another quarterback. But it creates a really interesting situation tied to his contract, where there are talks going on, and we'll see if they can figure out something before the season begins that is in the best interest of both sides with all that's ahead.
Peter, what can you tell us about Caleb's offseason in Chicago as he gets ready for his 2nd year with Ben Johnson?
Night and day from last offseason at this time in training camp, where there was a lot of growing pains, and it seemed to be there was a big curve that needed to be caught up with early, and there was questions whether he was going to be a master of that Ben Johnson offense. Year 2, from everyone I've spoken to in the building and from the reporters who have been at these practices, he's the coolest, calmest customer you could ask for. And in the joint practices against the Bengals has been as good as you could ever imagine. I know it's hyperbole now, and Thursday, August 20th, to be talking about what that means as far as January and potentially even February for the Bears. But those are the expectations, and everything you could have asked for from Caleb Williams this offseason, he has checked the box. It's now he's got to actually go ahead and do it. But you look at some of these highlights, him hitting Jade Walker at the end of practice yesterday, like this stuff is coming together, and he looks to be outstanding in his offense in year 2.
Least proven wide receiver room in the NFL outside of maybe the Giants. Now, that's not to say they're not talented or they can't have outstanding seasons. But if we're looking at who are likely the starting two receivers, remember this organization traded away DJ Moore, one, Ramon Dunze, and two, probably Luther Burden III. This is where those guys have ranked. We're not top 70 in catches. We're not top 50 in receiving yards. We're certainly not in the top 20 in touchdowns. And so that's last year. These are two tremendously talented young men. But if this offense is going to break records like Ben Johnson said he wants it to, or this young quarterback is going to take that huge leap forward in year 3 in MVP conversation, the Bears are going to kind of make a run at the NFC Championship, those numbers are going to have to be different out of that wide receiver core. And if they don't, this offense is not going to be what a lot of people expect it to be.
Colston Loveland, the second-year tight
Stud.
end, should be a big factor as a receiver. Remember, they were run heavy last year, and Caleb had the 32nd highest completion percentage in the league, so maybe room to grow.
Yeah, and
right?
a bunch of fourth quarter comebacks, a bunch of those miraculous throws. So you're not going to live on the edge like that and win all the time.